Welcome, everyone, to episode 173 of Puppet Masters and Castle Freaks, the internet's leading all things Charles Band podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jared Hornbeck, the podcaster with strong hands that can lift your chassis. And I'm coming to you from Brooklyn, New York. If you just bear with me a second, I just have to jack back into the grid. But I am not the only one who is running for their dear life inside the Sherman Oaks Galleria. No, who else is here with me?
Well, Merry friggin' Christmas, everyone. My name is Steve Guntley. I'm here from Austin, Texas, and this is the podcast about exploding heads, car trumpeting, and climbing down the rose trellis. That's because this is the podcast about Murderbot, a latter-day Jim Wynorski film that gives us our best opportunity to secretly make this an episode about Chopping Mall. So we are talking about Chopping Mall this week with a Murderbot chaser. That's right. We're going guestless today because I feel like we're the only two who can really handle the load on this one. This are
Sure.
This is an important couple of movies here, but this is a really fun pairing here because what we're getting is two Jim Wynorski films, bookending his career, his first film, and then one of his most recent films. We get to see a real evolution in filmmaking styles, and we get to talk a little bit about his career while also talking about a movie that I know is dear to both of our hearts. So,
is this an evolution, Steve? Like, to evolve, doesn't that mean like you start somewhere small and you end up in like a grander scale? This is a de-evolution.
I was trying to think if that was like too mean to say or if it was or not, but yeah, it kind of can't be denied. I think watching these movies back to back, I watched them in reverse order. I watched Murderbot first, and then I went back to Chopping Mall, which I'd already seen before.
Sure.
And I'm like, oh boy, yeah, there really has been a decline. It's a fairly steep decline.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about it in terms of like my relationship with both of these is that, I don't know, a year ago or year and a half ago was like, oh, this Murderbot movie, this is a Jim Wynorski movie. And then in reading some trivia about it was like the movie was originally going to be called Killbot. And I was like,
right, well,
that's interesting because, the other movie we're going to talk about today, Chopping Mall, was originally called Killbot.
It was.
And so, I'm curious for you, Steve, like we'll go to Murderbot and do the stats and do all that stuff. And then we'll hit Chopping Mall proper after that.
Okay.
I just want to know like your history a little bit with Chopping Mall, because for me, it wasn't until the 90s probably that I saw that movie with the title Chopping Mall. For whatever reason, when it played on WPIX channel 11, which was quite a bit in New York at that time, like maybe like late 80s, sometime between like 88, 91, that era. I remember specifically that when it was advertised as Killbots. In the TV guide, it was Killbots. And so I really wonder if the 19-minute longer version was the version that was, I don't know, that Pix 11 owned the rights to at that time, because I always saw it as Killbots. And then when I started seeing it being referred to as Chopping Mall, I was like not entirely sure of the chronology of when the title change happened. I started to think, oh, was it originally Chopping Mall and then they called the TV version Killbots, or was it released on VHS as Killbots? And no, it was just, it started as that and then it didn't do well and it got edited down almost 20 minutes and retitled, and then went on to make a decent amount of money actually in a small theatrical run. What's your history with this movie?
I wish I could say I'd been in on the ground floor, but I only watched this movie for the first time, I think, within the last 5 years. So I'd heard about it. I've seen it on video store shelves quite a bit. It's a very memorable title with a very memorable cover, which I also always kind of conflate. Do you know the movie Death Machine? With like, it's like kind of a liquid metal. It's like a blue, like a silvery gray cover with like a clawed hand, like rising out of like some liquid or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I'm
whatever reason, I've never seen that movie, but for whatever reason, I always conflate the Chopping Mall cover and the Death Machine cover. But I digress.
You don't have to digress that much, Steve, because really, like if we're talking about the Chopping Mall cover, really all they did was they repurposed the severed arm from House.
It's very much
shopping
House
bag under it.
That's also very much an influence on that as well. Yeah, so it's a newer discovery for me, but it was a very pleasant discovery. I think this is a movie Well, I guess, do we want to get into Chopping Mall first, or do we want to just kind of like talk
Oh,
about
I
Murderbot first?
I was curious if you also had a long history with Chopping Mall, and now that I know that you don't, why don't we save that one, for when we're inevitably done with this one in 15 minutes and we can start talking about that.
Exactly. Chopping Mall will be our digestif, and we'll first chow down on a little Murderbot, which was released March 31st, 2023. It's directed by Jim Wynorski, written by Wynorski and Kent Rudebush, and it stars Lauren Parkinson, Eli Serino, Dare Taylor, Walker Mintz, Ryan Rathbun, Rocky DeMarco, August Kiss, Lisa London, Rebecca LeBeau, Sydney Thackeray, and Rib Hillis. Now, this is a bit of a return, as we're going to get into when we talk about Chopping Mall. The movie was originally going to be called Killbots, and so for the second time in his career, Jim Wynorski was going to be directing another movie that was originally called Killbots. It's once again, it is about a killer robot rampaging through a friend group. But yeah, oddly, this title was changed, and I'm not sure exactly why, but it has made it a little difficult to Google. There is a recent Apple TV Plus series called Murderbot, starring Alexander Skarsgård, which is based on a series of novels by Martha Wells. So I'm wondering, I'm not sure if those were ever popular enough to want to like draft off of that, but the show came after this, but the books were already a thing around this time. So I don't know, it could just be the Mockbuster sort of playbook. Oh, sorry, you're muted.
I like to think that this is the source material for,
oh yes,
or that this is, the source material of, is being very closely captured in this 46-minute long movie Murderbot from 2023.
Yes. Now, the Jim Wynorski that we find in 2023 is a very different filmmaker than the one he was in 1986. He kind of went the David Dakota route of volume, just pure volume of movies. He has directed 110 movies since 1986, which is probably conservative. Like I'm willing to bet there are more movies on his IMDb that he directed or shadow directed that aren't making the cut. But we've covered some of his recent films, weirdly only on one episode: Attack of the 50-Foot Cam Girl and Giantess Battle Attack. We covered both of those movies.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the movies that he runs these days they stride the line between like very hugely entertainingly silly and pretty unwatchable. I think those Cam Girl and Giantess movies kind of strode the line a little bit. Both of it,
Absolutely.
There were moments of those movies that are transcendently dumb and pretty great. And I would argue there's moments like that in this movie too.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, really, if you want to be reductive and whittle this movie down, it is a lady Terminator, which does not work in its favor, considering we have a much better movie called Lady Terminator.
Yes, exactly, and we have unofficial movies with Lady Terminators that are better than this movie. So,
yeah, like I think I struggle a little bit with how to approach a property like this, because in a way, I recognize, and it doesn't stray too far from the Charles Band format of like, make something quick, make something cheap, get your friends some work.
Sure.
Right. So there are people within this movie of Murderbot where it's like, okay, these are, I guess, maybe not exactly the Jim Wynorski stable of players, but like people that have popped up in stuff that he's done before. And also, like, adult film stars and people like that, people whose careers have spanned across low budget exploitation, but also softcore, maybe even some hardcore there. I mean, if you pull up just like Becky LeBeau's IMDb, you see a movie called Nudity Required, which kind of sums up like the career of a lot of these people.
Based on the popular contract.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, and I think you'll scroll through too, and you'll see an overlap of some people that were in like Sorority House Massacre 2, which is when Jim Wynorski took over the Massacre series there for that, and Hard to Die. Those movies are hugely entertaining comparatively. But I think on one hand, I'm very forgiving because that's what's happening here. But on the other hand, I feel like, and again, this is probably the marriage of Jim Wynorski and Kent Rudabush writing this. Is you texted me something, a little inside baseball. You texted me about the acting in the movie off mic, and I was watching the movie and I was thinking, like, I almost feel like some of these are purposely stilted in different acting choices by
Right.
people. It's
I
almost
wanted to
like they're
press you on
being
that.
directed that way, because there is now here's another thing. I don't know where you fall on this, but like I'm thinking about like a James Nguyen, right? Like a
Right, right.
Birdemic type thing, where people will claim that he thinks he's making a good movie, but everyone else seems to be in on the joke. This is one of those times where I don't know. I can't tell if everyone involved is winking at the camera. Oh, hey, check out how silly this is. Check out how non-committed I was to that line delivery, or if it's sincere. And I think that's where you run into a problem when you can't tell. There's a line of dialogue in this movie that I think is a microcosm for how I kind of feel about it in a way. Like,
Sure.
there's a line where the hot doctor is walking through with her little two minions, and they say to her, oh, did you get any sleep? And she goes, I was in bed, but I didn't sleep. Similarly, I feel like if you ask someone in this movie, like, hey, were you in a movie? They're like, well, I was on camera, but I don't know if I was in a movie.
I was on camera, but I wasn't acting. Yeah, no, I can kind of see where you're coming from, just because I had texted just saying, like, I have not seen performances this bad in a while. Like, I didn't think performances this bad were still possible, because I feel like there's an increased sense of media savvy, and an understanding of like a good movie versus a bad movie and things like that. I feel like every performance in this movie is so insanely terrible, but in insanely unique ways. And the behavior of so like I can see how it might almost be like exaggerated for effect, because otherwise, like, I have a hard time believing that people are, going out and trying to be professional actors and they think that this is a level acceptable, like at any level. Like, if you're becoming a professional actor, you've been in plays in high school, you've been in, you have some experience, like reading lines and things like that. None of the people in this movie feel like they've ever read a script before.
I've never used this descriptor before, and I mean this. It's obviously not like a positive thing to say about an actual motion picture, but I don't mean it 100% as an insult, because I don't know, again, what the intentionality behind this was. Like, you look at these asylum movies and you look at Birdemic and you go, there's definitely somewhere in there, there's clearly the intent to make a purposefully bad movie.
Yeah.
Now, what degree of that is happening here, I don't know, but this movie, does not feel like a movie. This movie feels like a Tim and Eric sketch.
It really does. Like, in the same way too, that Jim Wynorski and both Tim and Eric, like they favor kind of unconventional looking people, or people with like really extreme like body modifications or things like that. Like, he favors that particular look. Like, the actress playing the titular Murderbot, her name is Rocky DeMarco, and she is a model and a female bodybuilder, and she just has this really extreme like body, really huge muscles, and like a really sharp face, and kind of, he favors these very interesting looking people. And in the same way, and there is a kind of giddy vulgarity to the entire thing. I would say this one is 1,000,000% less vulgar and horny than the Cam Girl movie or the Giantess movie, but that's still very much a prevalent factor. I mean, just again, the aforementioned scientists are just like three kind of girls who look like they walked right off a porn set and put on a lab coat,
and they're kind of the best part of the movie. Like, honestly, like, the way that they would kind of just mirror what she's saying, and this weird little like speaking in unison, like her two little minions, they would just kind of like the second and third in command of the scientists. Like, that stuff was kind of funny. And then occasionally there was something silly, and you talk about the toned down horniness in this movie, Steve. Well, the general or sergeant or whoever he was, I mean, he said it best, when he said cleavage does not inspire fear in the enemy.
It most certainly does not. It most certainly does not. I mean, I wrote my one mean note in there is that Lauren Parkinson, she plays Val in this movie.
Mhm.
She gets top billing, and I think it's because she's the only one doing any acting, and she's doing all of it, and everyone else is kind of like, I don't know. There's just this weird. It's like they're reading lines like and punctuation was left out, but they're not inserting it themselves. So they're just reading these weird run-on sentences. It's very hard to describe, and so I can kind of see your point how like this might be intentional, but it also feels like a movie that was done really fast and really cheap and without maybe the wherewithal to be ironic, if that makes
Or
sense.
or it could be the complete opposite and it just doesn't translate. It could be like, hey, we're making this thing super cheap. Like let's all sort of be in on the joke to make it as ridiculous as possible.
Right.
Um, but it's like there's no way to know. Like there's
Yeah.
really no way to know the sincerity here. I mean, you got Rocky DeMarco and August Kiss, who is the doctor, Dr. Merriweather, and
Mhm.
Lisa London's in there, and
I kept thinking of the
Becky LeBeau.
there's a Futurama joke with a busty doctor named Dr. Good and Sexy, and that's all I kept thinking of. It's
Yeah.
like Dr. Good and Sexy is here. Yeah.
Well, there is the scene. I mean, you talk about it being toned down, but there is a scene that was inserted here specifically because this is a Wynorski joint, and we've got a producer clipboard of stuff that we want. And there is a scene where Dr. Merriweather is rubbing two phones on her naked body, which I didn't fully understand what the point
Yeah.
of that scene was. It's like she has the camera lights from her phone on and she's just rubbing it on herself, and it's
I
very
feel like
odd.
yeah, I feel like we lost a scene in there somewhere. Like it should be mentioned again, this movie is 46 minutes long. So even by our standards, this is a short movie. And it still kind of runs out of steam. Like it doesn't quite have enough to cover the entire 46 minutes.
Yeah.
It
Well,
does
this,
have one of the most murderable kids we've seen in a movie
oh my
yet,
God. Yeah.
Trumpet Boy. If you were on a road trip and your friend brought a trumpet and started loudly playing it in that like enclosed space, how quickly would you just shove him out of the car, right? Like I wouldn't need to wait for a murder bot.
Yeah. Again, this is one of those situations where you throw a bunch of youngish and young people together. Why they're together doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's a cabin in the woods scenario where they're driving out. There is a hilarious line. And see, this is what makes me think that some of this is intentional, if not all of it. There's a line where they're driving and it's like, are we almost there? And it's like, when will we know we're there? It's like, well, when you see mountains, do you see a mountain range? And they're like, no. And then it cuts to a front angle of the car and they are driving through the largest mountain range you've ever seen in your life. And I'm like,
Like
that
it's
has
right
to be an
there.
intentional joke. Like I don't know, man.
But then I don't get what the joke is. The joke that their character is just dumb because that's not really continued, like so I think basically we're being generous calling them characters because even like the actors that they chose look almost identical to each other. Like the
They
boys look
sure
all the
do.
same and the girls look pretty similar. Like two of the girls look similar. Sydney Thackeray, who plays Kat, she's the blonde with the blue eyes. I did find an interesting bit about her.
Yeah.
Her IMDb trivia was saying that she, at age 19, was given a knighthood by the Vatican for her humanitarian work. And I'm like, okay, this sounds a little like bullshit because I don't think they do that. But I looked into it. This is real. This really happened. She was made a dame through her humanitarian efforts through various groups in Southern California. And she's got a couple of like charities that she gets up and going. And she is only, I think, 20 years old right now. So cool. That's cool. I mean, I don't know. I just learned something new. I didn't think that you could be knighted by a foreign country, but apparently you can.
The pipeline from this to knighthood doesn't make complete sense, but
No.
but her mom, Gail Thackeray, played the Empress in Giantess Battle Attack, and she's also in Hard to Die and a bunch of Jim Wynorski movies too. Sorority House
Yeah.
Massacre 2, which I mentioned before. Also, obviously had a role on Baywatch, and and here just to tie it all together, she also starred in Nudity Required.
There you go.
The aforementioned nudity required movie.
So clearly just an old family friend of Jim Wynorski, and kind of she's popping in to kind of do him a favor, it seems. Yeah. So, and it's a nice little generational nod, it's nice to see that multiple generations of women will work with him. So that's good to know.
Yeah. Well, and this is the first time I think ever in a movie, as unpleasant as it is, I will say it's the first time I've ever encountered like a Deus Ex trumpet for something where it's like, this kid has a trumpet for seemingly no reason. It's kind of telegraphed immediately, like, okay, he's going to play the trumpet and it's going to make the robot malfunction or something like that, which is exactly what happens.
They make her Venom, basically. They make her Venom. She loud resonant noises cause her to completely malfunction. And so, it just so happens the world's most annoying boy brought an extremely loud instrument in a car trip with him.
Yeah, it's something, man. There's like a bounty hunter type law enforcement character who's there for no real reason.
Yeah, he just kind of shows up. Yeah.
He shows up out of nowhere. There is a ridiculous diner owner in the beginning too, who then ends up strung up, and I think they find him in the waitress's body, and it's like these isolated events happen. And again, like the one of the reasons why I think that there was no real intention on like making a real movie here is that every single frame of this movie seemingly takes place in the broadest daylight you have ever seen.
Yeah,
it is the brightest lit movie. Like, okay, Attack of the Cam Girl, battle, the Giantess battle attack movies. Those are like broad, so more comedic than this one is, or at least than this one appears to be. And so you don't really mind so much when you're seeing the forced perspective stuff happening in broad daylight. But here it's like, as much as like this movie, whenever the character of the Murderbot herself is out, it's like just broad daylight. It's not menacing. It's not anything like that. Well,
they even set up a scene that is taking place at night. Like there's one scene where it's just suddenly night, and one of the boys is walking out to go get something, and then he dies. And I was thinking, like, okay, in a movie like this, like you don't have much time left. We're at the nighttime. That's a natural kind of setting if you want to make a horror movie climactic sequence, right? Like it takes place at night. That's fine. No, like they fade ahead. They fast forward to the morning when they're waking up and realizing that their friend never came back. And it's like, did you guys sleep? Why didn't she just come in and kill you? Like what happened in those intervening several hours that you guys were just like, I mean, what happened?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the type of thing that just feels like large swaths of a script, if there were one, were just missing. And honestly, it would have been better off if this is what it stayed as. But this whole thing, it really plays like a porn parody of a Machine Gone Wrong movie. And it could have been called Breast World. And then everyone lost out on that.
Exactly. And it just, it doesn't even feel that much like this is not a sexually explicit movie. It just features large cleavage, but that's really about it. There's one or two gore scenes, but even then pretty tame. So it just kind of feels like it's not even really trying to be prurient in a fun way. So I don't know. It was pretty bad. It's pretty bad. I don't know what else to say about it.
At no point,
it's pretty silly.
At no point during its 46-minute runtime was I bored, because I didn't have time to be bored.
No, yeah.
Like it was just quickly. Like, oh, this is a ridiculous thing that's happening. And it's like this kid is playing the trumpet in the car and every other kid is reacting as if something different is happening in 4 different other cars.
Yeah.
Like it's just a very bizarre curio, if nothing else.
This is just how kind of inured I've become to this sort of stuff since doing this show. Like there was a time when I would have seen this movie and immediately gotten super excited and said, this is one of the best bad movies I've ever seen. I want to have a bad movie night and everybody come watch this, check out this insane thing I found. Now this is like a Tuesday, this is like, oh yeah, this doesn't even quite make my list anymore of good, bad movies. It's just kind of bad.
Yeah. There's just not enough there. Like, no. I think it really feels like it's taking a playbook from like the Birdemic style of filmmaking. I mean, it doesn't have the grandeur of like a Neil Breen movie. Like, I don't think
Right.
Jim Wynorski is approaching this as if he's like an auteur. Like, I'm going to direct and shoot and edit and star in this movie like Neil Breen
Yeah.
would do in one of those insane projects that he works on. But
And
like,
and Wynorski was a protege of and very much a ascriber to the school of Roger Corman.
yes.
Who was, he trained him and he worked as a editor and assistant director for a lot of Corman films. And so Corman was always, aiming to be fast and cheap and like, don't worry about the art of it and just kind of get these things out there because you're not going to be making any money if you're not getting them out there. And so he's a B movie mill, just like Dakota is. They're practical and they're pragmatic and they don't waste any time. And what's on the screen is on the screen.
Yeah. It should be noted that one of the more bizarre kind of credits in this movie is that this movie is both scored by and shot by Chuck Serino.
Yeah.
And
Father
yeah. And we've mentioned him before. Actually, it was one of the times a listener actually wrote in. I don't remember if it was, I think maybe it was in a Spotify comment where we were talking about another movie that he shot, saying that the name sounded really familiar. And here's a good place to segue, I suppose, is that the person commented saying, oh no, yeah, he was like a composer. He actually did the Chopping Mall score. Now the score to Murderbot, not the most memorable in my mind, pretty forgettable. But you know what? That score for Chopping Mall fucking rips.
Kind of rules. It kind of rules. I mean, yeah, let's take it back. Let's rewind back to 1986 to kind of talk about the main event today. And that is Chopping Mall. Now, Chopping Mall. Oh, I lost my notes. One moment. There we go. Chopping Mall was released November 14th, 1986. Directed by Jim Wynorski, written by Wynorski and Steve Mitchell, and it stars Kelly Maroney, Tori Odell, Barbara Crampton, John Terlesky, Russell Todd, Paul Bartel, Mary Warrenoff, and the great Dick Miller. This movie kind of began life as an idea of Julie Corman, the wife of Roger Corman. She commissioned a script for a horror movie set in a mall. Now, for those of you who don't remember the 80s, this is the beginning of mall culture, where you would just go to a mall and hang out at the mall. And if you were a cool teen, you went to the mall and you just mall ratted around. It was a thing once. Most suburban malls are dead by this point, but it was once a very big moment. And ever the exploitation filmmakers, I think they were ready to jump on any possible trend. Now they approached a few different filmmakers, but finally Jim Wynorski stepped up. And he agreed to write the movie for scale as long as he was allowed to direct it as well. And this wound up being his directorial debut. Now, he and his writing partner, Steve Mitchell, decided to use robots as the main antagonists. They drew inspiration from a 1950s film called Gog, which I've never seen. There's also, apparently, there's a 1970s movie called Trapped, about a bunch of people trapped in a mall, except instead of robots, it's killer Dobermans. And some people have pointed out that the movies are very, very similar. Wynorski swears he's never seen it.
Well, and both of these movies, if you check Murderbot and Chopping Mall here with the malfunctioning robots, there's also clearly like a Westworld influence here too.
Yeah.
Like technology goes bad and you're trapped in an isolated location.
Yeah. Yeah. And the isolated location this time around was, of course, the Sherman Oaks Galleria in LA. If this looks familiar, it's because this has been the setting for a lot of things from the 80s. Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Commando, a bunch of other movies were shot in the Sherman Oaks Galleria.
Yep.
They had about 20 days to shoot this one, pretty luxurious by our standards. And Wynorski cast blonde bombshell Kelly Maroney in the lead. She was coming off of Night of the Comet, where she is a real standout, like a phenomenal performance, like such a fun movie. Another kind of recent discovery for me, but I really love it.
Oh, I love Night of the Comet, and that's just speaks to how great Night of the Comet is. That you're saying like that she's kind of a standout in that movie. She kind of is, but it's like Catherine Mary Stewart is so good in that movie too. That it's like the two of them as a co-leads are just so much fun, both of them.
A very lived-in relationship between those two in that movie. Like they've got their own kind of shorthand, and they clearly just had a lot of like real chemistry. They played off each other great, and I think that movie really works because of them. This also features an early role from our friend of the show, Barbara Crampton. I think she has Reanimator is 85, and 86 she has this and From Beyond. So her
Yeah,
kind of scream queen career is off and running.
I don't know. I'll have to ask her which one of these shot first. I think From Beyond beat this to theaters by a month or so.
I think so.
But I don't really know the order in which they were shot, but very close. They had to be very close back to back.
Yeah. And I love that Wynorski got in at least one brief cameo from art film weirdos Paul Bartel and Mary Warrenoff, who come in, improvise some dialogue, are never seen again. I love that they're there.
And,
it's great. Are they the owners of the mall?
You know what? I don't. Is that explicitly said?
I've never actually been
I'm
clear
not
on
sure
what
if it's explicitly said.
Maybe
but
they're just
they
people who
are
like to heckle trade shows. I don't know, but they're great. It's really funny.
Yeah, no, they're just heckling this doctor who's doing this presentation, which I think is kind of hilarious. You didn't mention though, Steve, a cameo from one of our favorites, Garrett Graham.
Oh,
Also,
I forgot.
in
Yeah, I
like
forgot
one
about
single
Garrett Graham.
scene. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's amazing. And I mean, we also get a cameo from Dick Miller, who I think debut for our show. Maybe is it possible he has not come up before?
Wow, it might be.
That's
It
wild.
might actually be. It's kind of wild that we
Dick
would do
Miller,
any kind of B movie podcast and be 173 episodes in
absolutely.
without. I mean, we probably mentioned him, but this is the first time I think that he has popped up in something that we've done.
One of the greatest Hey It's That guys of all time. I mean, a Roger Corman favorite. If you don't, you definitely know him. He's in Gremlins. He's in a million other things. Like pretty much every Joe Dante project, he's in it. Every Roger Corman project, he's in it. Just this affable kind of like working class mug. He's only in it for like 30 seconds, gets electrocuted and fucking goes for it, man. That man knows how to pretend to be electrocuted. It's in his blood. He was incredible. I'm a big Dick Miller fan.
Yeah, no, same. He is famously Mr. Futterman in Gremlins, and he is also the guy who, tells Arnold Schwarzenegger that he can't load the shotgun in the gun shop.
He sure
and
is.
Pays for it.
Hey, only what I got in the shelf, pal. Oh, good. So good. But yeah, so they have a fantastic cast here. The movie, like you said, was originally going to be called Killbots. They screened it in March of 86 as a 100-minute film. However, that screening went pretty terribly. Audiences complained the film was slow and confusing. And so the filmmakers did what I think most movies should do. And they cut a whopping 20 minutes off the film. It was already a pretty slim film. The final product is 77 minutes long. And that is just chef's kiss, like incredible. This movie does not waste 1 second. It doesn't overstay its welcome by one iota. It is the exact right length. I think at the cutoff, at least back in the 80s, to be considered a feature film for theatrical distribution was 75 minutes. So it's like right there, it probably below it with credits. And so they kept it mean, and I love that.
Yeah, Slumber Party Massacre ekes in at about 77 minutes too.
Exactly.
So that's Roger Corman. That's kind of a magic number for him. He's like, he can trim this thing down to 77 minutes, and we'll get it out there. I
forget what it was, but I think Patton Oswalt a couple years ago at the Oscars had a thing where he was giving the award for editing, and he's like, all of your favorite movies were saved by female editors, which means they actually directed the movie. Jaws, Goodfellas, Taxi Driver, all these movies were saved in the edit by a woman. And that's exactly what happened with Chopping Mall as well. It's maybe not as rarefied of air as some of those movies, but you know what? Chopping Mall, I think 100-minute Chopping Mall would have been interminable.
Yeah, I mean, this thing, it would have been approaching 100 minutes there. But no, you're totally right. That Patton Oswalt bit's pretty funny. I think I don't remember if it was from an award show or just a stand-up special, but I definitely saw that. And I think there's, something to be said for the point he's making in that. I wasn't paying close attention to, I guess, I knew about the failed screening and then the renaming and the editing. March makes me think that this was shot then before From Beyond.
Yeah, I would guess that. Yeah, because March was the screening, and then this debuted in November. So From Beyond was probably out by that point. I'll double check the release date of
From Beyond. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think From Beyond is an October release, but for this to have been completed in March. Yeah.
So Barbara had 2 movies out in theaters probably like right around the same time. So I wasn't actually able to find how much money this movie made, but it was received like fairly warmly by critics, actually. Like it's sitting around like a 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, which for a movie like this is pretty good. And I think if it didn't make money in the theatrical release, it certainly made money in the video market, and it's kind of become this like very slow burning cult favorite. I think people have slowly come around to this movie, and I would like to continue to bang the drum for it. I think it's so fun.
Well, if you ask Barbara, well, that's I do too. But if you ask Barbara, Barbara will tell you she doesn't really understand the cult following that it has
for this one. Really?
She kind of views it as this little blip, on her career. But she's like, people love that movie. I don't really know why. I've heard her talk about that before. I don't even remember. I maybe even brought it up to her. I don't even remember.
Yeah.
But I know that she was talking about it and saying that, like, I don't think she looks back on it as fondly as she does, the stuff with Stuart Gordon. But that being said, like, she does get to act with her friend Kelly Maroney. I know the two of them are friends in real life, and Kelly Maroney is so much fun. She's always fun. Like, she's such a fun presence in these movies. Also, a couple of other interesting genre people here, from the married couple who are experiencing car trouble earlier on to join them in the mall, is Russell Todd. You might know him as the preppy guy Scott in Friday the 13th 2, who is the one who steals Terry's clothes while she's skinny dipping, and then gets strung up in one of Jason's traps, and then a machete to the throat.
That guy has one of the most like cartoonishly handsome faces. Like he looks like a caricature of a handsome guy. Like
he still does. I follow him on Instagram, and he's he's in his 60s, and he still looks great.
Yeah. No, he's got a face on him. He looks great. I mean, I think everybody's like really good in this. I mean, we kiss up to Barbara a lot, but like genuinely, like, or it sounds like we kiss up to Barbara a lot, but I'm being very genuine when I say like she found the formula with this kind of movie. Like, she knows how to play this kind of movie without ever feeling like she's embarrassed of it or winking. She kind of is just straight down the line. And like, as such, like, her death sequence in this movie is pretty tough. Like, this is a silly movie about killer robots patrolling a mall, but her character gets like wounded and is like crying for help. And there's a lot of pathos to it. And like, when she gets burned alive, essentially, like it's really unpleasant. And that's a credit to her skills.
It is. And I think that, and every once in a while, like, even a movie, I mean, I happen to think this is a good movie. I mean, at least a good genre movie for what it is, a movie I really enjoy watching, that I've seen a number of times. But even sometimes in a movie that's considered to be like a lesser property, you end up with, if nothing else, sometimes you get lucky and you get one or two iconic images. And the image of Barbara yelling while a robot is behind her is a really greatly framed shot. And like, I think it's one that, it's an 8x10. She signs a lot of conventions.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a super cool, and it's it makes her death scene a little bit more affecting, I think.
Yeah.
And I wonder though, like, they have a whole thing where she's, set on fire and this and that. I mean, there's a fire budget. There's things that are, that are being blown up and exploding. But I want to know what was larger in this movie. Was it the pyrotechnics budget or John Terlesky's chewing gum budget?
My God. Yeah. And he really knows how to work it too. Like, he's really, he's using the gum. He's using it in the scene to really inform his character. Yeah.
It's the most aggressive gum chewing in a movie that has ever happened. And it's really funny. I like when people make choices like that. Like, sometimes you're hindered, right? You're like, I'm in this B movie. There's not a lot of character depth. I want to give my character like one little characteristic to make them stand out. And you get it done sometimes really well in Dream Warriors, where it's like, you don't learn a ton about these characters, but they're quirky enough and they have their one thing that they play up a little bit that makes them a little more relatable. And you get it. It's like, okay, think of Friday the 13th 5. You have like Violet, the punk girl or new wave goth girl, who her whole thing is that she constantly has headphones on listening to music like she's in fucking Heathcliff and the Calico Cats or Cadillac Cats, whatever they were called. But like, okay, that's not really like A+ character building, but at least it's something. And I think with John Terlesky was like, his character on the page doesn't really stand out from the other male co-leads in the movie, but he is going to town on that gum in a way that is making him a little bit more memorable. And I just
Yeah.
feel like that's the kind of choice you got to make there. So I'm going to make this character stand out slightly, because if you ask somebody, oh yeah, he's in Chopping Mall, someone would be like, oh, is he the guy who's big jaw guy who's constantly chewing gum? But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to Barbara's point of like not really getting what it is that people are responding to in this movie, I would say just for me, I love how lean and focused this movie is. Like
Yeah.
this is there's not a wasted moment. I think they use the setting well. I mean, this movie wastes absolutely no time getting to the premise, right? We see a robot within the first 10 seconds of this movie. It's a little bit of a Band-Aid rip, because I will say the robot design in this movie is not terribly inspired. I think this kind of looks like the little Tomy, like robot toys that were popular at the time, or maybe you could say Rob the Robot if you're an NES fan. Like this was kind of the standard design of a robot, and there's nothing about them that inspires fear. But it kind of doesn't matter. It's like all we need to know is they are a threat. This is why they're a threat. And then we'll walk you through this whole presentation where we explain exactly what they do and why they're here. It's really good, like, table setting. And then it just kind of gets right into the action. We get like the obligatory 15 minutes of horny teens being horny teens. And then we're just off to the races with a head explosion for the ages.
It's a good head explosion. But I want to ask you, Steve, can you think back to the good old days, the days of your youth when you were so starved for any affection that it seemed like a good idea to, dry hump your romantic partner in a closed furniture store while your other friends are coupled 10 feet away from you?
Weirdly, a plot point that also comes up in the first season of 24. So apparently after hours furniture shops are where all the kids are making out these days. But yeah, I look back at some of these 80s movies sometimes and I'm thinking like, okay, this is a little younger than my parents' generation or whatever, but these are people who are like older than me. I'm looking back and I'm like, was everybody just like fucking in the same room in high school? Like, was that a thing? Like, that by the time that was a concern for my generation, that was not a thing that was happening anymore. I don't know if the premium on privacy went up or what, but 80s movies like this just always depict everybody being extremely comfortable, being extremely naked in front of each other. Hey, good on them, but still, yeah, how times have changed. Now, yeah, I mean, I think this movie, it's there's just no fat on it at all, and I think that makes it a lot of fun. Like, I wish there was some chopping, just to, I understand the pun of the movie, but this is mostly laser blasts and fire, but there's no. It's one of those instances where like the title is wrong, but it's also better than the other title that they were going with. Like, I wouldn't want this movie with any other title, certainly not Killbots, which is nothing. But I think Chopping Mall is still a little bit of a misnomer. I think you might be expecting a slasher film, this is not really.
Yeah. Killbots just sounds way too tame. It's like you're watching like USA's Cartoon Express or the Mattel and Mars Bars Quick Energy Chocobot Hour.
Exactly that. Yeah. It's just too generic or something like that. It's kind of, that's a mid 80s movie. I think we covered it, right? Did we cover the movie Creature? No, we didn't cover that.
No.
But there's just a movie called Creature, and I'm like, that's such a. I mean, what are you gonna do with that? Like, how are you gonna Google that movie? Like, that could be about anything. I don't know.
Yeah, we've already had that monster. Millicent Patrick designed it. There's lots,
Yeah.
Don't take any credit. Didn't take any more credit away from Millicent Patrick.
No, come on. Yeah, let her have something.
Yeah. No, you're right. This movie doesn't really have a lot of fat on it at all, unless you're, that guy that orca that dines there every night and asks the waitresses for more butter in a hilarious
butter.
In a hilarious
more butter.
I genuinely love the opening montage of this movie. I think the music rips. I think it's shot in a very fun way where like some of it's POV, some of it is like the film is sped up to kind of get through this like B-roll of people kind of just hanging out and being lazy at the mall. but I think it's really, really good. And I think the Chuck Serino's score throughout the movie is killer. I think
Yeah.
it's a really memorable synth score where, you know, I don't think it's hard to say. I'm trying to think of like by 86, we definitely had moved into synthesizers in movie scores, but a lot of them weren't as like straightforward, just synth. Like I'm thinking of ones where it's like, I mean, a lot of movies were still scored with strings and things, but if you look at
Yeah.
Richard Band's Reanimator theme, it takes Bernard Herrmann's strings and it adds kind of like a synthy, a disco beat behind it. And then there's the Friday the 13th movies. I mean, Charles Bernstein's Nightmare on Elm Street score is a pretty ominous synth score, and that's from 84. But I
Yeah.
don't know, this one feels more stripped down. I think a lot of times like the synth was coming in, they were like piping synth into a larger sound with other instruments. And here it's really just keyboard.
I
But I
think
dig it. I dig it a lot.
Yeah, the other score, I mean, the other synth scores around this era are all kind of trying to do John Carpenter. And I don't think this one's doing
Yeah.
John Carpenter. It's doing kind of its own thing, you know, and it's fun because they're playing around with like a futuristic idea, right? These security
Mhm.
robots. This is sort of the dawn in 1986 of when we can start seeing robots in our day-to-day life, you know, like we're
Mhm.
actually it's the beginning of when that's starting to feel futuristic. And so this plays with that trope a little bit while still being a movie set in 1986, you know, Southern California. So it's a really well matched to the tone of the movie. And it's like, it's light enough and silly enough. Like this movie isn't like straight up comedy, but I think it has a healthy sense of humor. And I think it has a healthy understanding of what kind of movie it is. And
Mhm.
so everybody's playing it straight but not too straight, and they're having enough fun with it that, you know, he kind of makes it buoyant. I don't know, I think it just works. It's I think it's a cut above a lot of the sort of generic B movies that we're getting around this era, and I think that's part of the reason why it's just sort of endured.
I think this movie is the perfect, and this is a descriptor I haven't given a lot of movies on the show, but I think it's secretly how I feel about a lot of films. I think this movie is the perfect middle of the night at a 24-hour secret horror thon.
Yeah.
Like if this thing comes on at 2:30 a.m., you don't know what movie is coming on, and you see that Concord Films logo come up and the beginning of this, it's like, you know, you're strapping in for a fun 77 minutes. There's not going to be any lulls.
Nope.
Like, I think this, you can kind of get your second wind during a movie like this in that kind of setting. I feel like it's just it's super conducive to that kind of viewing. I think
Yeah.
it's a great midnight movie. It's a great middle of a horror marathon movie. Yeah, I that's kind of where I feel like it fits. I think it came out, it got sort of like not lambasted, but like middling to dismissive reviews. And then it was kind of this thing where people would just be like, oh yeah, kind of, you remember Chopping Mall? And now it's become a movie that people talk about in short lists of, you know, 80s slashers or horror movies. Although I wouldn't really call this a slasher per se, although it does follow the
No.
formula pretty decently. But it's like, I definitely think it's gotten a bit of a second life, and I can't help but think it's the perfect like drive-in / horror marathon movie, but right in the middle. Like, you don't want to start it with this. Like, this is a 2:30 a.m. movie.
Or totally. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you can pop into it or pop out of it. You know, you can watch your favorite scenes and then jump out without feeling like you've abandoned something super important. You know, it's a confection, and I think a pretty fun one. You know, and
Yeah. And
it's always a delight to get to talk about it.
it's the only movie to my knowledge where someone tells Barbara Crampton that she smells like pepperoni.
Exactly. And she takes it as a compliment because I like pepperoni. How does he say? He says it like so. He puts the emphasis in so many weird places. It's really
It's a fun exchange. It's kind of a call and response exchange. Again, if you're watching this at 2:30 a.m. in the middle of a horror marathon, there's going to be a handful of people who are going to be anticipating that line, and
yeah.
it is delivered in a unique way by Nick Siegel, who's a guy who didn't he didn't do a lot. He's got kind of a short IMDb. I mean, he is in the movie School Spirit, which has a very memorable poster. I can think of, like, the busty co-ed, her holding her towel closed with the ghosts
Yes.
behind her. But
Yeah, that's
he
right.
is also in a movie that I don't think we have had the opportunity to talk about on this show for any reason, and that is one little film called Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Starring Adolfo Boogaloo Shrimp. Yeah, I mean, hell of a year. In 1984, you get two Breakin' movies right in a row, and then 8x8. Yeah, so it looks like he more or less retired by 1989. I'm not sure what he's doing now, but but he is the nephew of George Siegel. Didn't know that. There you go. So I guess I
Oh,
can see
that's
it.
cool.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
a
yeah,
piece of trivia that I didn't actually know.
yeah.
Um, but between him and John Terlesky, there's a lot of mouth happening in
There's
this
a lot of
movie.
mouth. There's a lot of good
But
mouth
let
acting.
me ask
And
you, have you, Steve, have you seen either Break-In movie?
I've seen bits and pieces. I don't think I've ever seen them all the way through. I do own both soundtrack albums, so
Well, I mean,
on
that's
on vinyl, of course.
obviously, I mean, if there's something you're going to own and a way to own it, that's how you do it. Break Into Electric Boogaloo is pretty good. Like, in terms of the things that they do, and like Break In 1 has the really fun, like, Shaka Khan montage where it's like Turbo, Ozone, and I forget Lucinda Dickey's character's name,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they're like teaching her how to dance, and it starts off where it's like, oh man, we got to show her how to street dance, and there's a bunch of, like, them like, oh, what did we get ourselves into, like, looking at the
Mm-hmm.
camera. And then it's like by the end they're all like dancing in unison and like walking down the street together, high-fiving each other. And it's like that, that montage is famous. And I think there's some other cool dance sequences. That one is more like plot driven. I think Breakin' 2 is more like set piece driven.
Okay.
And there's like some crazy, crazy dance set pieces in that movie that are like way better than you would expect them to be. And I feel like that movie always has a rap of being just like this ludicrously titled movie that
I mean,
no,
one of the great subtitles. I mean, at this point, it's maybe become a bit of a cliche, but it is one of the
yeah,
great sequel subtitles of all time.
yeah.
Maybe I need to
And that,
prioritize these. I do love dance movies. I don't know. There's always something like so impressive.
yeah,
I've
I'm
even
not
watched
gonna,
several of those Step Up movies, and I'm like, you know
oh,
what?
have you?
This is trash, but like this dancing is incredible. I'm locked in. You
Well,
know?
all right, if that's your metric for how
Yeah,
whether you enjoy these, then definitely watch Break Into Electric Boogaloo,
I'm on it.
because there's like a Boogaloo Shrimp part where he's dancing like on the wall and ceiling of a room. It's like crazy.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
it's
amazing.
it's super super good, like way better than it needed to be. And I always find it fascinating where Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus decided that they wanted to put their attention and care. Like, it's like, we need to make the best possible breakdance movie. We need to make the best possible lambada movie. Before,
Again,
like,
if for those who have not watched the documentary just called Electric Boogaloo, which is all about
mhm.
Canon Films, unbelievable movie, such a wild run with that company. We've had surprisingly little crossover with Canon Films, even though we've talked a lot about the direct rival of Empire. But like, yeah, really, the reason we have Chuck Norris as like a movie icon today is because of Canon Films. The reason we have breakdancing, they have stuff like The Apple, which is just completely incredible. And then they have Oscar-nominated movies like Runaway Train, which is just like
Yeah.
crazy.
Under the Brooklyn Bridge. That's the one with Elliot Gould.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They've done they did like a Hamlet, I think. Like, yeah, there's a couple of really
Hmm.
good movies in there. So
No, Canon made a couple of really good movies, and then they made a couple of, if nothing else, like really fascinating failures. Like, I will watch Masters of the Universe. I will watch Over the Top.
yeah,
Like, I
I
will,
love
some of the
Over the Top.
movies that they were that basically bankrupted their studio at the end there are fascinating footnotes, if nothing else. And now I'm just picturing like Chuck Norris and Charles Bronson like standing together in Canon offices with Bronson
Yep.
just being like, "Hey Chuck, put down that script, that one's mine."
This is a side tangent, of course, but do you have thoughts on the upcoming Masters of the Universe movie? Were you a fan? That kind of whole thing sort of missed me, but like, were you
So
into the He-Man?
I was just old enough to be very into He-Man in its first iteration. And because I was young, I wasn't a discerning like consumer of culture. And so when the Masters of the Universe movie came out, I remember just being like, "Oh, cool, a He-Man movie, amazing, can't wait." Like I didn't think about the fact that it had been a dead property for a couple of years at that
Yeah.
point. And it was sort of like, I think anybody a little older would be like, why now? And why didn't this end with, or why not an animated one? Which I think they did. Like there's a He-Man and She-Ra movie that was an animated feature length, but it's like, why
Yeah.
not in 1985? Why now in 1987 when interest in Masters of the Universe is at an all-time low? I didn't know that. I was just a kid who had He-Man toys and watched the He-Man cartoon and had Snake Mountain and Castle Grayskull and figures and things like that. So I was very, very much into it. A funny, there's a like a home movie VHS that my parents had, which I was watching one time just because we went on vacation, and I'm gonna say this had to be around 1984, maybe.
Yeah.
But I have like one of those little thin He-Man books with me, and my parents' mutual friend is sitting in a pool with me, and he's reading it, but I didn't realize at the time because I was a dumb little kid, he was riffing on it, and he was changing what the characters were saying and giving them like voices, and it was like basically turning it into like a Borscht Belt routine,
Yeah.
and that's on video, and it's pretty funny. I watched it again like as like a teenager, and I was able to see what it was that he was doing, and I was like, oh, that's funny. But yeah, no, I was very, very into He-Man. I think I was the tail end probably of those people that would have been into it.
I was gonna say, yeah, I think we have like a 2-year age difference, which is like not much, but it is kind of the difference generationally between He-Man and Ninja Turtles. And I was all the fuck in on Ninja Turtles, and He-Man kind of missed me. So yeah,
Well, I
just
would
sort of
say
like
He-Man was the first. Well, it was like the trifecta of like He-Man, Care Bears, and Cabbage Patch Kids.
oh
That
yeah, yeah,
was
yeah,
the
yeah.
first. Those were all the first things that I wanted. Well, actually, if Smurfs too.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then there was like a little lull where those things kind of dropped off in popularity, and then it kickstarted again with Ninja Turtles, and then what became my ultimate obsession, which was Batman '89.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think I would be I was getting into the real Ghostbusters animated show around that time. So like Ghostbusters and Ninja Turtles were mine. And then Power Rangers, I missed it completely. Anyway, this is a
No,
whole
you
side
didn't.
tangent, but
You didn't have all of the Mattel brand chopping mall figures.
no, but I mean really most of any robot you could buy at a Toys R Us in 1980 would look kind of like a chopping mall
Yeah.
robot. So,
Well, I guess you had to settle for the Chopping Mall Madness board game.
I wanted that game so bad. I'm sure it's terrible, but I remember seeing that. Like, that looks like the coolest game. I'm like,
Oh,
probably
totally,
not.
totally.
Yeah.
And I had also, you mentioned the real Ghostbusters before. There was I think it was a tie-in more with the real Ghostbusters cartoon than with the movies themselves, but there was a Ghostbusters board game, and I had it, and I could not figure out how to play it. It was like you had to build like a Rube Goldberg machine. It was
Oh, yeah,
essentially,
yeah. Like a
yeah,
mousetrap.
it was like Mousetrap. It was exactly
Yeah.
like Mousetrap, but with Ghostbusters game pieces, and I never figured out how to play it. I just liked the way it looked, and I set the board up, and there was like a dice that you could roll that was a skull, and I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
But I never really figured out how to do it. And now all I want to do is sit in the fetal position and watch like High Tops video stuff to fall down a weird nostalgia rabbit hole.
Yeah, I might end up doing that. Yeah, doing a bunch of old commercials and stuff because that was the good stuff. Well, I think we've kind of said all we need to say about
I think
Murderous
so.
Robots for this week. Yeah, you can of course find us here. Yeah, we don't have
You sure
anybody to
can.
plug. Yeah, you can find us in this exact feed you're listening to.
Well, I'll jump in then, and I'll do my normal
Please.
segue here into all of our socials and everything, and communication with us. If you like the show that we bring to you every single week, the best way to show us is to go on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave a 5-star rating, maybe a brief review if you feel so inclined to do so. You are hearing this at the end of May, which means we've got just over 6 more months of amazing 2026 content to bring to you. So keep in mind our little show when voting windows are start to open up for the Rondo Awards. We know we've had some people who've told us they wrote us in for 2025. That's super kind of them. Really glad to hear that people like the show enough to suggest it as a best podcast of the year.
Yeah,
So
really sweet.
we'll start our true campaigning now, I suppose, for 2020 for the 2026 awards. But yeah, if you want to know what we're doing on the day-to-day, you can follow us on Instagram at puppetmasters_castle freaks, or you can follow me at _giallo_Jared. You can email us at puppetmasterscastlefreaks@gmail.com with any questions or comments or feedback. We will update with promo posts of the show on the day of release on Blue Sky and our Facebook group, and we have the audio versions of our show and maybe the video version of one of the shows that you might have just seen. Don't think that that's going to be an everyday thing, though.
No.
To this point, but it was a nice deviation to this point, in what we were able to do with YouTube. But again, all of this is a lot. We're both very busy. My school year is winding down, and Steve has tons of stuff he's working on. So, Steve, just give us a glimpse into what's going on in your life.
Oh, man, so much. I mean, I'm getting ready to get married in a couple weeks, so that takes up a good deal of time and planning. But I've also been writing stuff at Macabre Daily. You could find that, our good buddies over there at macabredaily.com. You could find some reviews there from time to time. You can also find me on my other podcast, Cinema Arcade, which I do every week. That is a podcast about movies, video games, and the sparks that fly when those worlds collide. We're watching movies and then playing the games based on them. I believe when this episode comes out, you can also find our new episode on Minority Report, Steven Spielberg's film, which I love.
Great movie.
And we've got some fun stuff coming up. We're going to be doing Willow, which is our famous Lost episode from back at the beginning of the show. We're going to redo that and get it going, and a bunch of other fun stuff that you can find there. So tune in there to find that. And you can also tune into us next week, because we are going to be talking about a movie that was not on either of our radars, not on our original spreadsheet. But luckily enough, we have a very cool guest coming on that episode who brought it to our attention. It's a movie called Scared. So it's direct to the point. That's a good title for horror movies. I'm surprised more of them don't just do it, Yeah, just say, hey, Scared. This is how you're supposed to feel watching this movie.
I love the idea of movies that are just adjectives or feelings. Sleepy, gassy,
hunger. Yeah, that's it. That is a movie. There you go. Yeah, exactly. Let's just do a movie called Sad.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We hope to see you next week. And it would just not be an episode on Murderbot and Shopping Mall if I didn't finish off by saying,
thank you. Have a nice day.
Pretty good.